Lavender Castle, a place of legend, fabled right across the universe. This is our quest to find it.
Lavender Castle, the Twilight Tower. The spaceship Paradox was flying into a strange blood-coloured mist. Its crew had never seen anything like it, and were trying to figure out what it was.
It could be the Great Red Mist,
pondered Isambard.
We used to get it all the time on the planet Othello. Or we could be approaching the atmosphere of a new planet,
remarked Roger. Whatever it is, I don't like it, said a worried Leica. Captain Thrice wasn't too sure about it either, but he said nothing as he wanted to concentrate on flying the Paradox.
Well, the only way to find out is to take a look,
replied Roger, tilting his controls to his right. As the Paradox continued its voyage into the mist, it became clear that it was indeed the atmosphere of a new planet. Leica, in turn, became uneasy. Roger, instead of going down, why don't you try going up? She worryingly queried, but Roger was determined.
Leica, I know what I'm doing, he snapped.
Just then, a mysterious tower perched on one of the planet's cliffs fired a beam at the Paradox. All its instruments malfunctioned, and both Roger and Captain Thrice were no longer in control of the ship, for it was being drawn towards the tower.
The autopilot's gone balmy,
shouted Roger. By now, Leica was even more worried, an emotion that she wouldn't normally experience. Now what are you doing? She cried.
I'm not doing anything,
shouted Roger.
We're out of control.
Oh no! Tower ahoy! Shouted Sproggle just as the Paradox drew nearer to the tower's top. But instead of crashing into it, the ship was swung round to a nearby ridge and dropped onto it like a freshly baked jacket potato. Once the crew had regained their senses, Isambard started to wonder,
somebody took control of us, but how?
And why? Added a curious Captain Thrice. This didn't seem like the work of Dr. Aegon. Some time later, Leica was anxious. Again, an emotion her species wouldn't normally experience. This place gives me the creeps, she shuddered. Let's get out of here.
Come on, Leica. Where's your sense of adventure?
Said an enthusiastic Roger. He and Isambard looked like they were ready for something.
This place could be a gateway to Lavender Castle. I think we should explore it.
And so do I, replied Captain Thrice wisely. He too was prepared for something. If we're going to find Lavender Castle, we've got to be prepared to go out exploring. Out there, interjected Leica. This planet is dangerous.
Dangerous, eh?
Said Sir Squeakalot, who up until now had been busy doing the cleaning. He ditched his feather duster and picked up his lance.
In that case, you'll need me,
he added, ready for action. Isambard, however, merely disregarded his services with a blunt,
Oh, not now, Squeaky. We're busy.
Squeaky was disappointed, but he understood and replied,
Yes, Mr. Isambard.
As Captain Thrice, Roger and Isambard prepared to disembark, Roger couldn't help but feel sorry for poor Squeaky.
You've hurt his feelings, you know,
said Roger, turning to Isambard.
He's a robot, Roger,
Isambard stated.
He doesn't have feelings.
Sir Squeakalot overheard this, and now he was even more upset. When was he ever going to get a chance to prove himself as part of the Paradox's crew? Out on the planet's surface, the three explorers came across what appeared to be the base of the tower.
There must be a door round here somewhere,
pondered an inspective Isambard. As if by magic, part of the wall disappeared, revealing what appeared to be a hallway. Captain Thrice, Roger and Isambard walked inside, but like Leica, Walking Stick was uneasy about the whole idea. "I don't like this place," she said. "It smells funny." "We came here to explore, and explore is what we'll do," explained Captain Thrice. He and the others wandered inside, but it looked like a dead end. Then Roger noticed that the ceiling was rather high, and he looked up as far as he could.
"Now how do we get up there?"
he asked. Suddenly, as if responding to Roger's beck and call, the wall sealed up again, trapping the trio inside. "You've done it again, Roger," said Walking Stick in the most deadpan tone of voice imaginable. Before she could say anything else, however, she was interrupted by the room moving. Everyone was pinned back against the wall by the G-forces, and they couldn't move.
"We seem to be in a lift,"
remarked Isambard.
"How fascinating!"
The lift came to a stop just as soon as it had started, and its doors opened. Before the three explorers stood not a gateway to Lavender Castle, but rather a strange masked creature in a room that reminded them of the entrance to a theme park ride. "At last, dear gentlemen," hissed the creature. "Everything is ready for you." Out of curiosity, Captain Thrice stepped forward to talk to him. "Who are you?" he asked. "And what is this place? It's not on any of our star charts." "There are many things that aren't on star charts," replied the creature, "as you shall soon see." He beckoned Roger and Isambard to a sofa, and they sat down. "Would you like popcorn?" asked the creature in a polite yet menacing way. "We also have some fine Chateau de Lavender cola, if you'd like."
"Vintage cola?"
retorted Roger.
"This guy's a fruitcake."
Captain Thrice said nothing, and just nodded. For once he had to agree with Roger. "But you can't enjoy the most fabulous object in the universe without a glass of cola," insisted the creature, offering Roger and Isambard a couple of glasses of cola. Seeing that the creature was being remarkably persistent, the two friends accepted the offer and took the glasses. Captain Thrice, on the other hand, wasn't too convinced. "The most fabulous object in the universe in a dingy place like this?" he questioned. That doesn't sound very likely. "Roger, Isambard, we're leaving."
"Where's the harm in it, Captain?"
replied Roger, who by now was well relaxed on the sofa and drinking his cola.
"Where's your sense of adventure?" "You have to admit, it sounds exciting,"
Isambard added. He too was relaxed. The creature's persistence must have paid off, because Thrice was now convinced, if somewhat reluctantly. "Oh, all right then," he sighed. "Let's see it." The creature handed the captain another glass of cola and pressed a button on a remote he was holding. From a round crevice right near where Roger and Isambard were sitting rose an object that looked just like a television set. He then pressed some more buttons, and the object turned itself on. Again, just like a television set. "This is the most fabulous object in the universe?" queried Captain Thrice to Walking Stick. "This chap's round the bend." "That's what comes from living on your own," said Walking Stick. Roger and Isambard, meanwhile, were too engrossed in the object. It was showing Roger's favourite programme.
"Dom Hammer!"
cried Roger.
"I haven't seen this for years!"
That did it. Captain Thrice turned to leave, and thought that Roger and Isambard should do the same. "Come on, it's time to leave," Thrice said, but the two of them wouldn't budge.
"Leave us alone, will ya?"
snapped Roger uncharacteristically. Captain Thrice couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Roger!" he exclaimed.
Be quiet, will you?
Barked Isambard in turn.
Some of us are trained to watch.
"What's got into them?" asked Walking Stick in concern. It was only sometimes that she was concerned about her fellow crew members, and this was one of those times. "I don't know, Walking Stick," replied Captain Thrice, "but I don't like it." Captain Thrice was right not to like what was happening. Behind his back, the mysterious creature was pressing some more buttons on his remote to switch channels on the object to a mesmeric swirl. Thrice walked over to where Roger and Isambard were sitting and said, "Come along, you two. We're going." Again, they wouldn't budge, so Walking Stick had a go at getting their attention. "The captain said it's time to go," she called, but it was no good. Roger and Isambard were transfixed by the swirl. Captain Thrice tried to go back to the paradox and fetch help. However, the creature was blocking his path. "Sit down, Captain," he drawled. "There's no escape." Captain Thrice wasn't going to let this mysterious masked menace get in the way of his exit. "Out of my way!" he cried in his most commanding tone possible. The creature didn't like to be told otherwise. Slowly raising its voice, he shouted, "I said, sit down!" He flung Captain Thrice and a Walking Stick across the room and into a dungeon full of treasures. It was here that Captain Thrice realised who this creature really was. "You're a common jewel thief," said Thrice. "Hardly common, Captain Thrice," replied the creature as if he was more than just a jewel thief. "I am the Guardian, Mesmerizer General and Immortal Soul of the Twilight Tower." "Well then, Guardian, if that's your real name," said Captain Thrice, "you won't get away with this." "But I already have," hissed the Guardian. "Your friends are mesmerized and you and that stick of yours are too weak to stop me." He turned to Roger and Isambard's mesmerized bodies, but was interrupted by Captain Thrice's voice. "Let them go, Guardian," called Thrice. "Keep me instead." "You are a very noble gentleman, Captain," said the Guardian in that polite yet menacing tone again. "But I won't. I intend to keep you all here as souvenirs." Captain Thrice was now worried. Even Dr. Acorn wouldn't do anything as grim as what the Guardian was about to do. "What are you going to do?" he bravely asked. "I'm going to do what I do best," snarled the Guardian, picking up Roger's mesmerized body like a doll and rummaging around for any jewelry he might have. Thrice turned to Walking Stick, resigned to his fate. "I'm sorry, Walking Stick," he sighed. "It seems our time's up. You've been a good friend." "And a half," added Thrice, giving a little chuckle in the face of doom. "As have you, Captain," replied Walking Stick, before the two of them fell asleep for what could have been the very last time. Had the Guardian's attention not been directed to the lift doors, out came Sir Squeak-a-Lot, holding his lance and hovering as fast as he could towards the Guardian, calling out,
Charge!
As he did so, the Guardian ducked out the way, but Squeaky was able to snatch what looked like a medal out of his hand.
"And who does this belong to?"
he asked, holding it out. "It's mine," replied the Guardian. To make sure that it was, or wasn't, Squeaky had a read of the medal's inscription. It read,
"For bravery above and beyond the call of duty, awarded by the Solar Space Academy." "I don't think so, Guardian,"
retorted Squeaky. Angered at being found out, the Guardian turned towards Squeaky and directed the object at him, turning on the mesmeric swirl in the process. "Whoever you are, Tin Man," growled the Guardian, "you will soon be under my control."
"Too bad for you that I don't watch television,"
called Squeaky. What the Guardian had forgotten was that the object had no effect on robots, as their sense of vision worked very differently to a living being. Squeaky hovered over to the object, despite the Guardian's protests, and smashed it with his lance. The Guardian screamed in both horror and at the very idea his plan was falling apart. Meanwhile, the resulting implosion from the object snapped Roger and Isambard out of their trance and woke up Captain Thrice and Walking Stick from their short-lived slumber. "The Twilight Tower's going to explode!" shouted the Guardian, cowering in fear as the object began shooting lightning bolts all over the place. You see, the object also acted as the heart of the Twilight Tower, so were it to be destroyed, the tower would be destroyed too.
"Hurry, everybody!
Called Squeaky.
Into the lift!"
Captain Thrice, Roger and Isambard quickly scrambled to their feet and made for the lift, with Squeaky joining them. The Guardian certainly wasn't going to be left behind, and he tried to make his exit with them, but made the mistake of stopping to pick up a golden casket along the way. It contained the many jewels he had stolen, and its resulting weight tripped the Guardian up and spilt its contents onto the ground. "My precious jewels!" screamed the Guardian. He was left to wail desperately as the 4 Paradox crew members started to go down in the lift. As the object exploded, it took out the entire top half of the Twilight Tower. Without a top, the middle and the foundations of the tower started to crumble, and everything collapsed onto the planet's surface. Upon impact, the entire remains of the tower ignited in one big fireball that could be seen from space itself. Had the 4 adventurers managed to make it out in time? Leica and Sproggle heard the commotion from inside the Paradox and went out to investigate, but all they could find was Captain Thrice's straw boater. "They're gone! All gone!" sobbed Sproggle. Suddenly, a familiar voice was heard. "Hello, Sproggle," it called. "Could you get me out of here?" The voice belonged to none other than Captain Thrice. He, Roger, Isambard and Squeaky had got out just in the nick of time. "Captain Thrice!" sniffed Sproggle happily yet tearfully. He ran over to Thrice immediately and handed his straw boater back to him. "Ah, thank you," said Thrice. "I was wondering where I'd left that."
Thanks, Sproggle.
said Isambard.
And you, lassie. You too, Squeaky.
Added Roger.
If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here.
"My pleasure, Mr. Roger,"
said a thankful Squeaky. Soon, the Paradox was flying through the space skies once more. In the lounge, Squeaky was hovering towards Roger and Isambard, stopping only to talk to Captain Thrice.
"I'm afraid dinner will be late tonight,"
he announced.
"I had to go jousting, as it were."
He then continued hovering to Roger and Isambard, holding out the medal from earlier.
"Mr. Roger, I believe this is yours,"
he said.
Thanks, Squeaky,
replied Roger, taking the medal back. He considered for a brief moment before handing the medal back to Squeaky.
I've always been very proud of this, but now I want you to have it.
"I will treasure it, sir,"
thanked Squeaky.
And Squeaky,
interjected Isambard.
I'm sorry for what I said. You're not just a robot. You're... well, you know what I mean.
Sir Squeakalot nodded, accepting Isambard's apology. After a while, Leica piped up. "Any idea what this is?" she asked, holding out a round gold-coloured object. "I found it in the wreckage of that Twilight Tower." Isambard looked closely.
It looks like a compass with a lavender-coloured arrow,
he said attentively. A lavender-coloured arrow? Leica immediately realised what this could mean. "Lavender Castle!" she called out. "A pointer to the true most fabulous object in the universe," added Captain Thrice. "I think we're going the right way." But to Leica's surprise, the arrow faded away. "Oh no!" gasped Leica. "Which way was it pointing?" "Don't worry, Sproggle remembers," interrupted Sproggle. "It pointed that way. Or was it this way?" he confusingly stated, pointing in the direction of this, that and the other. Oh, Sproggle, sighed Leica. This was going to be a long, long quest. The next story is called High Moon. Somewhere near the egg-shaped planet of Draco, the spaceship Paradox was engaged in a chase with Dr. Agon's mammoth machine. Roger had just pushed the ship to its full capacity, and for a brief moment, it looked like he and Captain Thrice had the upper hands in the chase.
Sol 20! Full power!
Called Roger.
Hold tight, everyone!
Everyone on board the Paradox held on as tight as they could whilst the ship sharply circled Draco as fast as it could. The image of the mammoth machine on Roger's monitor slowly faded.
We've lost him!
Cried Roger in delight. But that delight was to be short-lived, as the mammoth machine suddenly appeared from just around the corner.
Oh no! He's come round the other way!
Said Roger to nobody in particular. Roger turned his controls to the right, and the Paradox made a sharp turn just as Dr. Agon caught sight of the thatched cottage with jet engines. Inside the mammoth machine, Dr. Agon's finger hovered over a red button temptingly. At the urging of his pet falcon Trump, he pressed it and the bottom of the mammoth machine opened up. A missile came out from it, and it fired straight towards the Paradox. In the engine room, Isambard was pushing his MD-646 engine to its limits. He was unaware of what Dr. Agon had just launched at the Paradox, so it was lucky that Captain Thrice called to him. Isambard, maximum power! There's a missile!
We've already got maximum power!
Replied Isambard. He was right. The engine was groaning under the pressure, and if it were to be pushed further beyond its capacity, something bad could happen to it. But the missile had already locked onto the ship, and it looked like there was no escape. It's no good, Roger, said Captain Thrice resignedly. We're not going to make it.
We'll see about that,
determined Isambard, who had overheard the brief conversation. He picked up his special hammer, and with his innermost strength, threw it at the engine. The impact of the hammer gave the engine more power than it had ever handled before, power that was equal to 1,000 sticks of TNT. It seemed to have paid off, however, as the Paradox was now able to evade the missile. Well done, Isambard! We're clear! Congratulated Captain Thrice.
Aye, now you know why you have an engineer,
remarked Isambard cockily, pleased that his engineering skills had saved the day once again. Captain Thrice sighed. Was Roger becoming a bad influence on his best engineer? His thought process was interrupted, however, at the sound of an explosion. Every single light on the Paradox went out, and the rest of the crew turned around to see what was going on. The ship itself seemed to be coming to a halt as well.
The automatic retros have fired,
announced Roger, again to nobody in particular. It was a very burnt Isambard that appeared at the door to the engine room, coughing and spluttering as he did so.
A wee bit of damage. Nothing to worry about, Captain,
he weakly gasped before passing out. Captain Thrice, Sir Squeakalot and Sproggle rushed to the engine room to see what had happened. A wee bit of damage, said a sarcastic Captain Thrice. It's broken, replied Sproggle observantly. But the engine was more than just broken, it was completely torn apart. Sometime later in the Paradox's lounge, Sproggle was scared. Sproggle's frightened of the dark, he quivered. Sproggle, stop that wailing and find Dr. Agon's location, said Leica sternly. Deep down she too was scared, but she didn't want to admit it. Roger, on the other hand, wasn't scared. He simply turned to Leica.
Did you just ask Sproggle to find something?
He questioned.
He couldn't even find his way to...
But even Roger was taken aback when Sproggle suddenly stated, his position is 052 Mark 483 Space Latitude 089. Wow! How did you work that out, Sproggle? Queried Leica. Maybe Sproggle was becoming more useful after all. I didn't, giggled Sproggle. I can see him through the window. Or maybe not. Sproggle was right about one thing, though. Dr. Agon's mammoth machine was just a few feet away from the paradox. Inside, Dr. Agon himself seemed to be preparing himself for something important. Dr. Agon turned on his transvision, and Captain Thrice's face appeared on it. Ah, Captain Thrice, said Dr. Agon in that familiar and sinister tone of his. I will shortly be using my vaporizing cannon on that weekend cottage you call a spaceship. One small blast and your next stop will be... Agon considered for a moment. Yes, Oblivion. You'll like it there? Captain Thrice was prepared for whatever Dr. Agon had in mind. You know we're powerless, Agon, he said. What are you waiting for? Well, I think your end should be poetic, replied Agon. Your journey to Oblivion will commence at high noon on the planet Draco, 1 hour from now. With those words, Agon cut his transmission off. On the paradox, the crew were discussing what to do.
Where do we get Lavender Castle to help us, Captain?
Asked Sir Squeak-a-Lot.
Oh yeah, we can look it up on the Galactinet,
retorted Roger sarcastically.
What's it under?
Captain Thrice turned to the Australandian pilot, unimpressed. Lavender Castle does help sometimes, Roger, he explained wisely. It's just that it's never to order and always in its own way, added Walking Stick. We know because we've been there. Leica was amazed, but was Captain Thrice telling the truth? To make sure, she asked, Captain, is this true? Yes, it's true, answered Thrice. Please, Captain, tell us how you found it, pleaded Sproggle. Sproggle doesn't want to go to Oblivion, wherever it is. Captain Thrice thought for a moment. Was this good a time as any to tell how he found Lavender Castle the first time round? He had the sense of impending doom, but nevertheless he conceded. All right, Sproggle, he reluctantly said, but I don't know what good it'll do. Secretly, he wondered if telling this story would give him an idea that would get him and his crew out of this mess. He began to tell his story, starting at the best place to start a story, at the beginning. Many years ago, recounted Captain Thrice, I was travelling through space in my then new thatched cottage spaceship, the same one we're standing in right now. The rest of the crew listened carefully. It was a lonely life, recalled Thrice, but I whiled away the hours by carving myself a new walking stick from a branch of a laplong tree, which I'd picked up on the planet Toma somewhere in the Delirian star system. But one day, something very strange happened. Now the crew were intrigued. From the corner of my eye, I saw a strangely coloured light, Captain Thrice described. I turned to the autopilot and asked it, What's going on? What's out there? But the autopilot wouldn't answer, and this light, whatever it was, seemed to be growing brighter and brighter. The crew were now in awe, and not one of them made a sound. I left my walking stick on my chair, continued Captain Thrice, and walked to the window, where I suddenly found that I was right in the middle of this strange light. Good heavens, what is it? I queried. The light grew even brighter, so bright in fact that I had to shield my eyes. In confusion, I said to myself, I've got to get out of here, and rushed to the flight deck, only to find the autopilot was doing the work for me. By now, even Roger, who didn't usually believe in fairy stories, was enthralled. Curiosity may have killed the cat, said Captain Thrice, but it got the better of me, so I decided to look out the window. I saw nothing and heard nothing, and it was a strange, and looking back on it now, wonderful experience. It was like being in heaven. I came away from this light, knowing that wherever it belonged to, it was the place I most wanted to be, Captain Thrice recalled. But just to make sure it was safe, I turned to the screens and asked them, What was that light? The screen responded by showing a picture of all places, Lavender Castle. What a fool I've been, I muttered to myself. That was when I said my first ever words. You can say that again, interrupted Walking Stick. You should have seen the look on his face. He didn't know it, of course, but Lavender Castle had given me life. Indeed, and I couldn't believe it, added Captain Thrice. She was just a piece of wood, and now standing before me was a living, breathing walking stick. At last I had somebody to talk to, said Captain Thrice, ending his story. And that experience made me realise just how important Lavender Castle is to all of us, and why it must be protected from the likes of Dr. Aegon. Yes, added Walking Stick, if he gets his hands on it, you see, he'll destroy it, and the universe will become a dark, cold, and lonely place. Roger had enjoyed listening to this, but something had caught his attention outside the window.
Captain?
Interrupted Roger.
It's nearly high moon.
What Roger had seen was that the moon of the planet Draco had nearly reached its zenith. In fact, it was at the same position you might see whenever the big hand of a clock points to the number 11. Even though he had been put at ease by Captain Thrice's story, Sproggle was now worried again. Oh, we're definitely going to oblivion now, quaked Sproggle. But Captain Thrice was determined that this would not be the case. He placed Walking Stick on the table and went to the flight deck, fiddling with instruments, pulling levers and pressing buttons. Walking Stick knew exactly what behaviour like this meant. I know he looks like a harmless old clot, said Walking Stick wisely, but when there's a real crisis, Lavender Castle gives him powers that he doesn't understand himself. Thanks to these powers, Captain Thrice now had a plan. He went to the table and told the crew what it was. What we need to do, stated Captain Thrice, is to position giant mirrors here and there. Using Walking Stick, much to her chagrin, Thrice pointed to the left and right side of the paradox. That way we can deflect Dr. Aegon's vaporizing cannon, he continued. But Leica was quick to point out a flaw in the plan. Captain, we haven't got any giant mirrors, she said. Captain Thrice didn't like to be reminded of flaws in his plans while he was under Lavender Castle's influence, but before he could say anything else, he was interrupted by a doorbell sound. This was the way that the paradox could let any of the crew know that somebody was about to contact them. In this case, it was Dr. Aegon. Aegon calling, he cheerfully yet sinisterly announced as his picture appeared on the paradox's transvision. Are you ready, Thrice? It's high moon. Captain Thrice looked out the window, seeing that the planet Draco's moon had indeed reached its zenith. He hoped that Lavender Castle would be able to act and act fast. Be brave, everyone, he called to his motley crew of misfits. At last you're mine. Dr. Aegon chuckled, just before pressing the big red button again. This time, instead of firing a missile from the bottom of the mammoth machine, the top of the craft opened up, and a vaporizing beam was fired. At the port window, Roger, Leica and Sproggle watched as the beam made its way towards the paradox. It's going to miss us, isn't it? Asked Leica in a last desperate bit of hope. Roger, however, was more doubtful.
Afraid not, Leica,
he said.
It's locked onto us.
Locked on? Sproggle called out. By now he was so afraid that he simply fainted. Leica decided to spend her last moments by tending to him. And they would have been her last moments had two giant lavender-coloured mirrors not materialised out of nowhere. Captain Thrice must have known this would happen. True to his word, the beam was deflected off one, then deflected off the other. It was now making its way towards the mammoth machine. Dr. Aegon could not believe what was happening. He angrily turned to Trump. If I'm going down, he snarled, I'm taking you with me. Oh, no, you're not, said Trump mockingly as he tried to fly away. But before he could so much as spread his wings, Aegon grabbed him by the neck. Listen, you featherless freak, roared Aegon. Where would you be without me? Trump's vocal cords were strained by Dr. Aegon's grip, but he managed to squeeze out a reply of, down the drain, and I'd stay there. That was all Trump could say before the beam hit the mammoth machine, splitting it in two. Eagle and Trump were left to spacewalk back to the dark station in order to think of another plan to defeat the crew of the Paradox and find the elusive Lavender Castle. On board the Paradox itself, Roger was overly delighted. He had been proven wrong for the first time in his life.
Ha ha ha! Did you see that?
He laughed. Likewise, Laika was in disbelief. Yes, I did, was all she could say. Walking Stick, on the other hand, or Foot, had more to say than the two of them combined. That's Lavender Castle for you, she said wisely. Never to order, and always in its own way, added Captain Thrice. Walking Stick may have been cold-blooded and argumentative, but that didn't change the fact that deep down she cared about her fellow crew members. Isambard had taken this opportunity to perfect some last-minute repairs on the Paradox's engine. A short while after the threat was over, he was able to complete repairs, so he decided to let the rest of the Paradox crew know.
Ladies and gentlemen,
began his announcement.
May I present my rebuilt engine, and all without the help of Lavender Castle.
Everyone in the lounge jumped for joy and cheered. Even Captain Thrice, who was beginning to have doubts about him, joined in with the celebrations. But those celebrations were cut short by another explosion. Not again, sighed Sproggle. Once again, it was a very burnt Isambard that emerged from the engine room, again coughing and spluttering.
Oh well, back to the drawing board,
croaked Isambard before passing out. For the second time that day.